Okay, border states. We've spoken about them a little bit. They've shown up on our maps. Let's talk about exactly what they were. Border states were slave states that did not secede from the Union. So these were kind of the weird guys. There were 5 of them. I'll list them in just a second. But these were states that allowed slavery. But when it came time for war, they did not secede and go fight for the South. They stayed loyal to the Union, which makes me think, well, why would they do this? If this is a war of slavery, does that mean they're fighting to end slavery? And I'll answer those questions in just a couple of seconds. Before we go on, though, this is important to know. So border states, it doesn't mean that everyone in those states remained loyal to the Union. So one of the border states was Missouri. If you went to Missouri, there were a lot of people that supported the South. There were some that supported the North. They were kind of split. What it does mean is that the state governments officially remained with the Union. A lot of people, a lot of residents of those states went and fought for the South. Officially, though, they remained loyal to the Union. The 5 border states, you should know these from your map: Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. It's vital that the Union had these states on their side. I'm going to skip that for the time being. Once I show you the map on the next slide, I can explain that a lot better. These were the states where the citizens were truly divided between the two sides. In many cases, families were split apart. One son would fight for the Union, another would fight for the Confederacy. Historians have gone back and they found specific battles where there's one child on the northern side, one child on the southern side. I don't think it happened frequently, but it happened. The best example, Mary Todd Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's wife, president of the North, had 4 brothers that fought for the South. So that shows you it right there. So why? Why did they remain loyal to the North and did not secede? The reason why, it goes back to slavery, and these 5 states did not have nearly as many slaves as the other southern states. So slavery was still allowed, but they didn't have as many. For instance, go back to Missouri. Missouri, if I remember right, only about 10% of all people living in Missouri owned a slave. Slaves weren't relied upon. So 90% of people did not own slaves. So I think it's safe to say some of those 90%, they supported the North. And to answer this question, why? It all goes back to cotton. Slaves were not needed as much. They couldn't grow cotton as well in those places. So there's always that connection with cotton and slavery. So looking at the map, there are your 5 border states. And again, they're going to stay with the blue. They're going to stay with the North. Lincoln, to answer the one question that I said I was going to wait on, these 5 states, Lincoln has to be really, really careful. The reason he has to be careful is if he makes these 5 states angry enough, they could join the Confederacy. And if they join the Confederacy, that's bad news for his war, because in order to win this war, the North literally has to take their army and go down the South and conquer these states and conquer the armies. That would be 5 more states that the Union Army would have to conquer.